Video on sequences and particularly finding Tn for linear sequences. There's a couple of ways in which you can be asked to do this, so it's important to recognize all three of them. So the first is find Tn. This can also be phrased as find the nth term or find the general term. So there are a set of steps that we have to go through to find this Tn or nth term or general term for a linear sequence. Before we go into that, I want to just point out to you the connection between linear sequences and lines from coordinate geometry, or linear functions. We know that the equation of the line can be written in the form y equals mx plus c. Well, lines and linear sequences are very closely related. In fact, you could nearly say that they're the same thing almost. So the linear sequence Tn could be thought of as mn plus c. The only difference here really is that where I've got y for the line, I've got Tn for the linear sequence, and where I've got x for the line, I've got n for the linear sequence. Now you might wonder what m is doing in the linear sequence. We know that in the line equation, the m stands for slope. Well, in the linear sequence formula, the m here stands for first difference, or the term-to-term difference. In the equation of the line, we know that c stands for the y-intercept value. In linear sequences, the c stands for t0, or the term that would come before term 1. So let's look at an example to see how we can get this information from a sequence and use it to make the general term. So our example says that a given sequence is 4, 7, 10, 13 and so on, and we want to find Tn. Okay, so to find Tn, I'm going to start by listing out my sequence again and writing the term number above each term. And I'm going to give myself plenty of space. So here are the terms of my sequence, and above them I'm going to write T1, T2, T3, T4 and so on. Okay, next I'm going to get my term-to-term difference, my first difference. In this case, the way that I get from each term to the next is by adding 3. Okay, so now I know my first difference. I'm going to use this to pretend that I could go back to TO, to the 0th term. Now, there isn't a term 0 really. The first term in a sequence is T1, but I can still pretend that there's a T0 and I can go back to it by just reversing my pattern. So 13 to 10 was take 3, take 3, take 3. Okay, that would have to be 1, wouldn't it? And I'm just going to check and see if that first difference of plus 3 would work. And yeah, if I used plus 3, it would take me from 1 to 4, no problem. So what am I going to use to make Tn then? Well, I'm going to use that 0th term, T0, which is worth 1. And I'm going to use my first difference, which is 3, or plus 3. So to make Tn then, let's look back. It's pretty much the equation of the line, mn plus c. Where the m is, I'm going to put in the first difference. That's the plus 3. Where the c is, I'm going to put in the term 0. That's 1. So Tn is going to be first difference. That's 3. You can say plus 3 if you like. And then n. So the n is kind of like the x in the equation of the line. Plus c. So plus term 0. What's term 0? It's 1. So plus 1. If term 0 happened to be a negative number, then I'd put in minus whatever it was. Here's a second example. So we're given a sequence, 5, 3, 1, minus 1. We're going to list out the terms with the T1, T2, etc. above them. I'm going to make a note of the difference and just be sure that it's the same from term to term. So I'll take 2, take 2, take 2. So my term-to-term difference is minus 2, so I take 2 to get from each term to the next. Okay, now I'm going to write in term 0. So if there was an extra term at the start, what would it be? So what would I take 2 off to get down to 5? Okay, that would have to be 7. And let's just double check that our term-to-term difference works. Yeah, minus 2 brings me from 7 to 5. Okay, so now I have all the information I need to make the general term. Don't forget the general term will be in the form mn plus c. Remember, the m will be the first difference and the c will be term 0. So in this case, Tn, which is just the nth term, is, okay, so what's the first difference? The first difference is minus 2. So minus 2n plus c, so T0 is 7, plus 7. And I just want to note at this stage that T0 isn't strictly part of my sequence. It's just a handy number that I can work out to help me make Tn. Here's an extra little bit relating to example 2. I want to find the 100th term of the sequence. So don't forget, I can use Tn for this. Pause the video here and see if you can figure that out yourself. So really I'm looking for T100. So wherever I see an n, I'm going to replace it with 100. And in this case, my solution is going to be minus 193. Just a quick observation here. Notice that as I go through my sequence, my values are getting smaller and smaller. I'm getting down as far as minus 193 there by my 100th term. Also notice how the first difference is a negative value. So our sequence values are decreasing, sloping down if you like. It's almost like first difference is making them slope down. So first difference and slope are related. They're the rate at which the sequence is changing. Here's our third and last example. So we're told that a given sequence is 1, 5, 9, 13, and I want to find the general term. Remember that when we say general term, we just mean Tn, or the nth term. Remember there's a little formula for Tn, so it's mn plus c. Okay, so again, we're going to list out our sequence. I only have the first 4 terms, that's all I can write down. Term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4. And don't forget, for this little mn plus c, well, the m is going to be the first difference, and the c is term 0. Okay, I'm going to go to my sequence and mark in the first differences. So the first difference in this case is plus 4. Okay, I'm going to use that information now to work out term 0. So what would I add 4 to get to 1? Well, I can figure it out by taking the 4 away. So 1 take away 4 would bring me back to minus 3. I'm just going to double check to see does my first difference of plus 4 work? Well, minus 3 plus 4 is 1, so that's totally fine. Okay, so I've got my term 0, I've got my first difference. I want to make Tn. So Tn equals, so I'll write in the first difference, which in this case is plus 4. I can just write 4. So 4n, and then plus c. So what's my term 0? Well, it's minus 3. And I said earlier that if I had a negative number, I'd just write down that negative number. So there's my minus 3. So the general term of this particular sequence is Tn equals 4n minus 3. So here's an extra little question at the end. I want to find the 30th term of the sequence. Okay, well now that I know Tn, which is the rule to find any term, it's easy to find the 30th term. So I'm going to replace any n's in my formula with 30. So it'll look like this, 4 brackets 30 minus 3. And when I work that out in the calculator, I get a result of 117. That's the 30th term of this particular sequence.